Hello, dear listener. A very good morning to you and welcome to Perspectives, a current affairs discussion program on Agate Radio 95.5 Star FM, Makurdi, Benue State. Our topic on Perspectives this morning, we are focusing on the recurring cases of building collapse in the country. The upsurge of building collapse has become a source of worry to many persons, and according to the Building Collapse Prevention Guild of Nigeria, as at this year alone, a total of about 135 building collapse incidents with at least 26 deaths have been recorded. And recently too, we have had experiences of building collapse, particularly in Jos, the Plateau State capital, where up to 22 persons were reported to have died and scores sustained various degrees of injuries. Also in the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, just few days after the Jos incident, another incident of building collapse was reported in the Federal Capital Territory. And several other parts of the country that these issues are being witnessed. What are actually the factors responsible for the upsurge in the cases of building collapse? How can this the dreaded situation be tackled to prevent the loss of lives unnecessarily? These and many more we shall try to x-ray on this edition of Perspectives. And to lead the discussion, I have two guests in the studio as panelists. First is the chairman, Nigerian Society of Engineers, Makurdi Branch, Engineer Ukeyima Manger. Welcome to Perspectives, Engineer Manger.
Thank you very much, Nathaniel.
And I also have a private practicing architect who is a member Nigerian Institute of Architects, Architect John Ahangba. Welcome to Agate Radio.
Thank you for having me.
I am Nathaniel Nongu, welcoming you to this Wednesday edition of Perspectives. And if this is your first time tuning into the program, kindly be informed that it is an audience participatory program that airs between now and 11 a.m. And usually at 10 o'clock, we allow you to call in and also participate on the program or send us a text. You can call in at 10 through the number 0814-335-9292. 0814-335-9292. You can also send us a text through the regular SMS or WhatsApp on 0912-699-9404. 0912-699-9404. You may also listen to this program by logging onto our website on www.agateradio.tv.com. Also follow all our social media platforms on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and X, formerly Twitter. We are available on all these platforms and the program is streaming there for you to be part of it. Engineer Mange, I'd like to begin with you. Are you worried about the upsurge of building collapse incidents recorded across the country?
Thank you, Nathaniel. Obviously, everybody should be worried, especially those of us in the built industry. It is our desire to give something that will bring joy, not disaster and worries like what we are having now. So definitely, I should be even more worried because it's in my area.
Okay, Architect Ahangba, give us your thoughts or to what extent are you worried about the upsurge of building collapse cases?
Thank you. Building collapse, it's a thing of worry to me as a person because it sparks on the reputation of professionals in this country. You know, buildings don't just happen on their own. It is assumed that professionals, and sometimes not just assumed, professionals actually partake in the construction, in all the processes that brings a building to bear. So when these buildings collapse, it speaks to the incompetence of someone or the neglect of someone. So it makes us to lose pride in the profession. It's a thing of worry to me, and it should worry everybody.
Okay, Engineer Mange, are there particular human factors that are responsible for the cases of building collapse as we have recorded in the country over the years and, of course, recently?
Yeah, obviously, there are human factors has to do with those practitioners involved in the building industry, in the construction of those structures. There are issues of negligence. There are issues of non-expertise. There are issues of carelessness. And there are also issues of trying to beat cost. We want to achieve what we achieve, but not at the cost for which it's supposed to be. So they are human, all these are human factors that we tend to bring to bear on what we want. As it is in our country, the norms are pulled down. The abnormal things are what are being praised. If you see somebody doing the right thing, you see people query that. But when somebody is doing the wrong thing, those are the people we applaud. So all these are human factors that lead us to the collapse of the buildings.
Okay, and the human factors. With you, professionals who are involved in the build industry, with architects, engineers, builders, estate surveyors, and all these categories of people, to what extent is their culpability in the human factors responsible, as you have highlighted?
Yes, for the professional, he has a guide. There are specifications, there are codes. And if he chooses not to abide by those codes, it can lead to that. There are certain checks a professional is supposed to undertake for any building he's designing. If he keeps to those ethics, he will avoid that. But there are human factors of poverty and other things that lead us to not even cross-check structures, but are interested in the money. So because of the money, somebody can bring a design and cause me to seal just to meet the criteria or demands of the development control agencies. So without taking my time to check that drawing, I didn't design it. The person only copied the design somewhere and maybe brought to me. And I decided to seal it. Not minding because maybe I have a financial challenge. It's a human factor. I can also go and bring a professional on site. Let's say a craftsman on site whom I know does not know the work. But because I want to do him a favor, or because it's related to me, I push him into doing a job he does not know how to do. These are human factors that we keep trying to do favors to people in areas that we're not supposed to do. We also visit sites every day. When they are sites of our relations, we do not tell them the truth. We think we are doing them a favor. But eventually, when the damage comes, what favor have you done to him? I think these are the human factors that tend to affect us. Another thing has come now, the computer era. Designs are very fastly done now by use of software. Somebody might use the software and might not know too much about it. It's also a human error of negligence. So these are just a few of the things that come from the aspect of the professional.
Okay, Architect Ahangba.
Yeah.
From your point of view, what factors would you say worsen the situation of building collapse cases, especially as we have witnessed across the country?
If we really want to explore, X-ray the causes of building collapse, we have to look at it holistically. There are 3 stages in the life of a building. The building has the planning and the design stage. It involves human beings. The second stage in the life is the occupancy stage. So, at the design stage, it is possible for you to make a mistake that can cause a building to collapse. It is at the design stage that you bring together in harmony the structural members that can provide safety in a building. Now, it is possible that you will design those elements and they are good enough to give your building stability and safety. But when you pass it to the construction stage, the implementation may be another thing entirely. After the implementation stage, the people who occupy and use these buildings may also cause building collapse. So it is expected that there are 4 people that are involved in the life of a building: the client, the professionals, the facility managers, and the end users. So in all the stages, there are possibilities of these buildings to collapse. So if you want to highlight the factors that can cause building collapse, we have to look at all of the processes. Now, our development control agencies, you find that most of them are not doing their jobs. You also find professionals who are intruding into other professions. There's a reason why you are a civil engineer. You are not supposed to design a floor plan, for example. There's a reason why you are an architect and not a structural engineer. You can't do everything. So professionals are also culpable. Some clients, they lift building topologies and they forget that sites have peculiarities. You cannot, because you know somebody who lives in Plateau State, you lift a design that you saw in Plateau and you loved it, and you bring it to Makurdi. You want to implement it in Makurdi. The soil bearing capacity in Plateau is different from Benue. So sometimes clients also cause these problems. You have a site, you engage a professional, he goes to the site, takes cognizance, takes a study of your site environment and provides a design for you according to your site characteristics. Sometimes it's even the end users. They misuse these properties. They change the intent, the original intent of those designs. How do you design, say, a residential building and you convert the usage to a clubhouse? The loading of a clubhouse and a residential building are not the same. So when you overload your structure, things like differential settlement are bound to happen. Because the building was not designed to carry this level of load. It will go down. So these are some of the issues.
Okay, I am actually very interested in the culpability of professionals, because you also stated that professionals sometimes are culpable.
Yes.
To what extent is that level of culpability?
The extent is high. I can't even quantify it. But that speaks to the level of rot in our society. Everybody wants to do everything. You can't do everything. You find an architect who wants to do everything. When I first finished school, that reminds me, when I first graduated from the university, I met a couple of professionals in the industry who were ahead of me that I looked up to. And they offered to teach me how to make electrical designs. I said, no, I'm not interested in electrical drawings. If I wanted to, I would have gone to school to become an electrical engineer. I went to school to study architecture. That is what I want to do. I may have skeletal knowledge so that I am not at conflict with the electrical engineers doing their job on my plans. But that does not give me the requisite experience to perfectly carry out these drawings. I can only understand so that we will argue out and come to a compromise so that they do not affect the activity spaces I am providing in my designs. So professionals are highly, highly, highly culpable. sometimes.
Okay, Engineer Manger. In terms of building codes and specification, what is the standard building code specification that professionals in the stage of implementing a building project must follow?
We have building codes for concrete. We have building codes for reinforcements. There are also building codes for loading. We have building codes for soil bearing capacity. At whatever level, in all the different sections, there are building codes. There are building codes for column designs, there are building codes for beam designs, which are structural design codes. And these codes are there for you to, yes, pick it and apply based on the instruction of your client. If you are building a high-rise building to carry 10 people, it has provided for you what to do. At the end of the day, it has also given you a factor of safety to apply. But like the architect pointed out, right from the building stage, we start abusing what is supposed to be. Somebody is allocated a plot for residential purposes. He now turned it into a commercial purpose in a residential area. Another person is also allocated a plot for commercial purpose. He converted it into a different thing. Now, during the design, the designer was designing for a residential purpose. After he has finished design, you changed the use. And bear in mind that just like he referred to picking a design from Plateau to come and apply in Makurdi. Plateau is rocky. Makurdi is not swampy per se, but the soils are different. But how many of us actually check the soil type, do soil analysis before we start construction of our structures? Because the moment you define your soil, the first thing you need to do is, once you define your soil, it will tell you what foundation to apply for that soil. You understand? So that is part of a code too. This soil requires a raft foundation. This soil requires a pile foundation. This soil requires a pad foundation. So it is the bearing capacity of that soil that you have analyzed that will tell you the kind of foundation you will use there. Then you move ahead. What is going to be the size of your columns, your beams, is based on what the client requires, the loading that you are expected for that building. What is the sizes of the rods? The code will tell you. What concrete mix are you supposed to use there? What is the concrete grade you want? What is the concrete grade? Is this 25 newtons per kilometer? This thing you will need. It will tell you so that you apply when you refer to the code. So the specifications are there. If you go to site now, like look at the reinforcement, they say 16 mm. If you look at the 16 mm we have in the market now, it's something like 12 mm. So some of those things can come from the professional. Sometimes it's the client that is trying to beat cost. And because we will not force him to bring out his money, yes, even if we abandon the site, somebody else will come and take it up. But some, because of our own pride, we are supposed to abandon. If you are being pulled to do something outside your own profession, your ethics, the good thing to do is to pull out of that site.
Okay, architect Ahangba.
Yes.
Building generally involve all you professionals, the architect, the engineer,
Yes.
the builder,
Yes.
the estate surveyor, and
Yes.
all categories of persons.
Yes.
In terms of adherence to building codes, do you people actually agree on professional issues before executing a project?
The problem is larger than agreement on a project. We live in a society where the norms equals to apply. what is supposed to be is what we don't want to see to pass. If we are going to make a headway through this building collapse, we need to sit and look at the stages in the life of a building and engage everybody that is supposed to be part of the building process and explain to them again and enforce. It is very good to have codes to make laws, but to what extent do we enforce these laws? By human nature, people are not willing to do the right thing. They know, but I don't know, somehow they just can't comply until they are forced to do so. So the client needs to understand that even though he has money and he's desirous of erecting a building, he does not have the expertise. The law does not even permit him to go ahead. So there is a process. That you have money does not mean you will bypass processes. The client needs to know that there are people who the law has empowered to carry out a building, even though you are going to be the owner. So right from the inception, whoever is supposed to be involved in the process should be brought to the table, and they should ensure that everything necessary to the success of that project is followed to the latter. And then the Development Control Agency, the Regulation of Engineering in Nigeria, they are the only professional association you find them drive to sites and request to see the drawings, the approvals, and even the resident engineer. They insist. They want to see adherence. This is not to talk down on any other professional association, but I think they can do better. The architects need to come up with a team that visits sites, that ensures that you don't just build because you have a plot of land and that because you have money. Buildings affect people. When they collapse, the client loses money. When they collapse, some families lose members. When they collapse, they cause waste. They cause waste into the society. They cause a lot of issues. At the occupancies, when you finish erecting your building, somebody should manage it. Sometimes buildings pass through all the stages of the design, the construction, everything is perfect. But do you know that lack of proper maintenance can also cause a building to collapse? When your waste pipes are leaking and your walls are getting wet, it can cause your building to collapse. As little as sweeping your floor every day is a great maintenance strategy that can prolong the life of your building. Now, most people are not going to willingly carry out. That's why you go around the town and you find houses where they look like shanties. They look like people don't live here. You don't carry out. So buildings have lifespans. Maintenance will even prolong them. And we also need to understand that when you finish erecting a building, that's not the end of it. It's not going to live forever. There is something called restoration. There's something called preservation. After a period of, say, 40 to 50 years, you need to come to your building. As you're driving your car, after some time, you just feel within you that this car needs maintenance. And that's what keeps it going and it serves you for years. The same thing applies to buildings. After some time, understand that this building needs maintenance. Even if physically it's not showing you any signs. Involve professionals to come check. Sometimes something happens underneath your building, the foundation. You don't even know. So these are some of the issues that we need to address if we are serious about curbing the menace of building collapse in Nigeria.
Okay, Engineer Manger, in terms of structural design and level of integrity that a building should have, what is the standard protocol?
Yes, like I said before, for a structural design, no designer is supposed to go to site to start a design without knowing the bearing capacity of the soil.
Yeah.
He should know the kind of soil he is designing for. When he knows the bearing capacity, he will now know his loading. He's giving the specifications from the client. What is this building for? Once he knows what that building is for, he determines the occupants. What is the capacity of the building? What is it going to carry? That is what determines the loading. The whole structural members he's designing are going to be structural members that will carry the load from the foundation to the roof. So these are the structural members he's going to put together, from the columns to the beams to the walls to all the rafters that is going to come on top of the building. So that is what is giving the structural engineer the guide to do your design. He's not just going to design from nothing. So if you, for instance, don't tell him all these things, and he too wants to just do because you asked him to make a design. But first and foremost, before he even does a design, sometimes he doesn't go to the site. They only give him an architectural drawing, and he asks him to design for this from this architectural drawing. But he needs to ask questions, because the architect has put in a fanciful thing based on also the specification of the client. And the architect, because of what the instruction the client gave him, make certain designs and say, I don't want a column here. You can see let's say he's designing for a hall, and because of he doesn't want conflicts, you can see a very wide span, and he say, I don't need a column inside. I don't even want the beams to be seen. So that takes the structural engineer to the next level to try to come up with a roof that can be able to sustain that kind of span. Ordinarily, it has to now be a steel roof. But steel roofs too have their own loads. So he has to do the design to meet with the specifications of the drawing he has been given by the architect. The architect tells you that, no, that is what gives the beauty of my structure. And so I don't want you to go to that area. So to some extent, the question you asked earlier, there are sometimes the architect and the engineer discusses. But sometimes they don't. Why? Because the client might just come and pick that architectural drawing and take it to a designer he doesn't even know. And when the design is done, they didn't even discuss at all. And none of them might be on the site during construction. He can also take it to a different person and bring another architect entirely during implementation.
From what you have stated, it does appear there may be conflict of interest between the engineer and even the architect at the point of implementing a project for a building, especially in terms of structural design.
There are, but there are also definitions. For private structures, there is no understanding. But for government structures, sometimes, and organizational structures, the architect is the controller of the construction.
Yeah, the prime consultant.
Is the prime consultant on a construction site. And before any construction starts, they must have a site meeting. All these professionals will be there. But the architect is the prime consultant. So if it's your area, he calls you. Before you commence, every professional will present his briefs. That is for an organized site. Most government sites, most company or organizational sites. But even within this understanding, there is conflict. Somebody is still thinking that I'm not supposed to be under the architect. The builder is also thinking that I'm the one doing the job. But you didn't design anything. You're only following what people did. So there is conflict. Now we had this problem too. Just like he earlier mentioned. When we talk about quackery, we are thinking that it's people outside that are quacks. No. It is even the professionals that are practicing that quackery. An architect does his own architectural design. Because he has done that design before, and a structural design has been done on it, he just goes to lift it and come and put it there. And maybe look for an engineer to come and seal the drawing. He might tell you that the owner of the drawing is his relation. So he wants you to help him. And it goes. For the engineer who might be in difficulty, he will seal it and collect what his friend is giving to him. In the same vein, there are civil engineers that go doing architectural drawings. Why are you doing another person's job? There are the same designers who also do and pick electrical drawings, pick plumbing drawings and fit in there and only look for those professionals to seal the drawings. At the end of the day, none of the professionals is on site to supervise this. Of course, while in school, all of us have done applied studies in all those areas. So we have understanding of those areas. Not because they say you should go and do it. It is there for you to know that whatever the architect is doing is not strange. You should be able to read what he has put down. He should also be able to read what I have put down. That is why you pass through that. An architect is exposed to structural design in school. The civil engineer is exposed to architectural designs. Yes. But not because they want you to come and do the architect's job. They want you to be able to read his drawing when he gives it to you. He should be able to understand the structural design I did on his drawing. So that when we are discussing, he will tell me why he wants his own thing to be like this. I'll be telling him why I want this beam to be here. Because of the space you provided, it is too wide, it is too long, so the only thing that can hold this structure and give durability is this kind of beam. That is why he has to know that. So for setting government this thing, there's that understanding, there's that discussion. But there is conflict, yes. There's conflict because everybody wants to make money. Not limited to yourself. But it also has to do to a great extent with the client. It is the client who chooses not to request. If he asks the architect, please bring an engineer for me, he will bring an engineer. But if you start telling him that I don't have money to do this, I can't do this, I can't have this, and the architect chooses not to lose his job there, he will decide to say, okay, let me see what I can do. And so all the other professionals are removed from that site. The same thing goes with the engineer. After an architectural drawing is given to him, he has done the design. Maybe the client is his friend. Maybe it's his relation. He decides to go into implementation. He might even be changing. There are certain nitty-gritties that only the architect knows.
Yes.
Especially at the finishing, is the architect, he will come to that site and be disappointed because what he actually suffered and wanted to get out has been bastardized by the engineer who thought he knew everything, who also thought he was doing a favor to the client, and the output becomes bad. So there are always conflicts one way or the other.
Okay. Dear listener, if you are just tuning in, you are listening to Perspectives on Agate Radio 95.5 Star FM Makurdi. We are discussing recurring cases of building collapse in the country. And leading the discussion, I have with me the chairman, Nigerian Society of Engineers, Makurdi Branch Engineer Ukeyima Manger, and also a private practicing architect and member of the Nigerian Institute of Architects, Architect John Ahangba. You can also participate at the program later at 10 o'clock by calling us on 0814-335-9292, 0814-335-9292. In the meantime, the line for text messages And the WhatsApp chat is already activated. You can send a text or a chat on WhatsApp to the line 0912 699 9404 0912 699 9404. Please keep your message very brief and remember to include your name and where you are sending in your contribution from. You've also listened to iGate Radio, particularly this program and all other iGate Radio content by logging on to www.iGateRadioTV.com. The program is streaming live there. And also if you follow all our social media platforms on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, X, and formerly Twitter, the program is streaming there as well. And also, if you have your Radio Garden app device on any device at all, you can listen to iGate Radio. Engineer Ahangba, the overall,
Architect,
I beg your pardon, Architect Ahangba.
Thank you.
The overall objective of building as shelter is for safety of the occupants, be it residential, commercial, or industrial, or whatever purpose.
Yeah.
How can the conflict of interest be resolved between professionals to enhance the safety of buildings for the occupants?
The people who are responsible for enforcement of the regulations in the building industry should be held responsible. Somebody needs to sanitize what is happening in our development control agencies. These professionals are taught what are their responsibilities in the building process. And believe me, they know it. Everybody knows their boundaries. But when you go out to practice in a field that is not regulated, in an environment that is not regulated, times are hard. Everybody wants to make all the monies. So you find a quantity surveyor that wants to do the job of an architect. Unfortunately, the custodians who are supposed to ensure this enforcement are more culpable. You go to development control and you find them tell the client that, look, we are the one who are even going to, it will be easier for you, give us here. So they receive the brief from the client, collect his money, and find somebody who has just learnt the use of one software, designs for them. So how do you define the boundaries for these professionals and ensure that everybody adheres to it when you are even adding to their problems? The civil engineer knows where his job stops. He knows who is the prime consultant. He knows who he is answerable to. But by virtue of relationship with the client and how the client has positioned him, he feels that he should be the boss. The architect, by virtue of his training, has been told that he is the Oga of the building industry. So he will despise your relationship with the client and say, you can't boss over me. This idea was conceived by me. So everybody has to do their job. The client needs to understand who is the prime consultant, who conceived the building. He needs to understand that the contribution of the engineer is only to provide safety for the structure, even if the engineer is his son. Those who are responsible for enforcement, you go there and you find that there are no professionals in that place. Somebody studies sociology somewhere, he comes out and he doesn't have a job. He has a big man politician who knows somebody somewhere that can help him get a placement. And at the end of the day, he finds himself there. So when he visits your site, instead of enforcing, he's looking for his transport back home. The moment you give him some stipends to, facilitate his movement back to his house, it's okay. Whatever you are doing is your business. You can go ahead. So we need to sanitize these places. We need to put people who have the requisite training in the industry to man the agencies. And when they man the agencies, they should give themselves professional integrity to be able to enforce. If you are an engineer and you are, for example, the GM of Urban Development Board, I will expect that you will send your men to go to sites and ensure that every site that is supposed to have a structural engineer on the site has one, at least, and they are in strict compliance. So these roles should be defined. The people who are responsible should wake up to their responsibilities. The clients should discard relationship with their loved ones and do things in the proper manner. There's also another very, very, very terrible emerging group of people in the construction sector. I fear for the future of construction for bypassing processes. Cool is put them in an office, make sure they make drawings for them, take them to site, and they are the ones who even change the use of buildings the most, because they don't want to pay the required fee for the construction of certain buildings. You know, if the requirement, the fee for construction of residential buildings is different from commercial buildings. You find this group of people, they design a structure for residential purposes. For commercial purposes, they go to the development approval and tender a drawing that looks residential. They get approval to develop residential. They come back, maintain the outside facade, and it looks like a residential building. They will wreck the industry, I'm telling you.
We hope we don't get to that stage, and that is why we are discussing this, to find experience, the just experience. Yesterday, the Director General of the Nigerian Building and Road Research Institute did address a press conference in Jos, the Plateau State capital, and he stated that preliminary investigation has shown that the building collapsed due to use of weak materials. I'm quoting him. Unfortunately, I made efforts to get the Director General to speak to us on this program, but it's quite unfortunate he's not able to join us. I made contact with him. He told me he was in Bauchi for an engagement and may not be available to speak to us on the program. But looking at the situation, weak materials, speak to us. What does the context of weak materials entail leading to building collapse in Jos?
Okay. Weak material encompasses so much. There are different materials on that side. We have concrete, we have the blocks, right? We have reinforcements, isn't it? Those are the aspects that deal with structure,
strength and
stability. What kind of blocks did they use? If they were cement blocks, did they meet the criteria for block molding? Was it 35 blocks, 6 inches blocks per bag of cement? Or was it the normal 49 inches for a bag of cement, which is supposed to be 25? What was the concrete mix? Was it not any kind of concrete mix? Did they do any cube testing when they were doing their construction to check the strength of the concrete? How was the mixing pattern done? Was it hand mix? Those are all the things that determine strength of concrete. If you are mixing with hand, the setting time and all those things must have weakened before you even start placing. Now, the reinforcement is another material. What sizes of reinforcement did they use? Was it to the specification? In another area, you can see people when a building collapsed. If you are witnessing the one that collapsed, you will see people going, iron condemn, going to pull the rods out. Another person will go and buy some of them and think he's saving costs. Rods that have already been used, how can you reuse them? But somebody buys them and you reuse. They are weak already. Sometimes when we are doing work, people don't care. They think that when you are supposed to do form works to cast your concrete, you can use any kind of wood. And nothing happens. That is busy running out is running out with the constituents of the cement. So during your casting itself, the form works you are doing, what material did you use? Were you trying to save cost and you went buying any kind of akpu material when you are supposed to buy plywood to make a form work? So there are different kind of materials that have been used. So when he says weak materials, it is too broad.
Yeah.
It is too broad. It should narrow down. It's supposed to have narrowed down. Weak material, the building has been there for some time, isn't it? So if it has been there for some time, if it was weak material from the word go, it couldn't have even lasted that long. Because if he was using a concrete mix of 136 for a high-rise building, it wouldn't have gone. If the person had used a reinforcement that were below, it wouldn't have also stand that time that it has stand. So he still needs to explain much on weak materials.
Okay, architect Ahangba.
Yes.
Oftentimes when the experience of buildings collapse are recorded, this is not the first time.
Yes.
Substandard materials in quote are often applied.
Yes.
A cost responsible. Why are we not addressing the concern of substandard materials that we keep hearing about, and every now and again a building collapse, substandard materials is attributed?
A society, you go into the market now and you find many options downgraded, down the scale. And the one at the bottommost part is what is most patronized. Why? There was a standard measurement for all the categories of reinforcements, like engineer earlier pointed out. If you go into the market now to buy reinforcement, you get a variety. They will say this one is standard gauge, and the cost of Y12 standard gauge is maybe 11 or 12,000, depending on the location. And now there's another downgraded standard of Y12 that is supposed to be Y10. They also call it Y12. And they will sell it for, say, 9,000. And the client rushes to buy that one. This one is cheaper. I want to finish my building within, this so amount. At the end of the day, they have renamed Y10 for him. And they have called it Y12. So in a place where the engineer specifies Y12, the person who is selling Y10 says this is Y12. So he takes
and
it.
This Y12, Y10 you are speaking about,
yes,
in context, is it an iron rod or?
It's iron rod.
Okay.
It's hard for its curing to develop maximum strength. Why do you cast concrete today and you start building on it tomorrow? What happens to curing? You have not cured the concrete, so it has not developed maximum strength to carry the loading. It's like in those days when we go to the farms, you take a load that is supposed to be carried by a 20-year-old person and you put it on a 12-year-old baby. Of course, the baby may carry it for a while, say for 10-15 minutes. But before you get home, there is no capacity again. So, when you take materials that should not carry a certain load, they may stand for a while, but after time, deflection, sagging will happen and they will buckle, so they will fail. Now, the Standard Organization of Nigeria is also culpable. Molding of blocks is all over the place. Somebody just raises money and the next thing is he starts a block molding business. So nobody cares what he's doing there. And as long as it's a business, trust me, somebody will patronize. This is how we have come about substandard materials, and nobody is enforcing. So it's your building, it's your business, it's your money. You buy. Nobody is going to come and enforce, so you apply. At the end of the day, you kill people. It's sad. Somebody should wake up to their responsibility to regulate even the block molding. You can't just go into block molding business because you have raised capital. You are going to destroy lives. And they've been succeeding with it. It's so sad. So sad.
Engineer Manger, substandard materials, the subject matter of these at the center of building collapse. How can that be addressed?
We have Standard Organization of Nigeria. That is the agency saddled with control of that. First and foremost, how did the material get to the market? They are supposed to be checked by some before they get to the market. Yes, some might be trying, but for a material that was supposed to be checked right at the factory before it gets to the public. It was allowed to get to the public. Now it has gotten to the public. Just like the architect said, you and me know the different block molders in town. We also know Big Daddy. We know the difference between his blocks and other blocks.
You are going to pay us. Marketing have heard me already.
You understand?
So they will make a booking.
It is for him to pay. So,
okay.
If I decide to build my house and I abandon the quality blocks and go and buy another blocks that I know is not up to the standard, I am also culpable. Am I waiting for sun to come and tell me which blocks to use? I am not. We even go back again to cement. Even cement now, the quality is being affected. You go to the market, they give you the same kind of cement, but the prices are different. You see it in the same bag, 3x, but they tell you this one is different from this one. It's up to you to buy which one you want to buy. At the end result, what you bought is going to give you the output you want. So Son on his part should please try to curtail what enters the market from the manufacturing point. Now, the other aspect that has to do with the professionals, maybe it's high time the professionals ought to maintain their integrity. If you go to a site that the client is ready to work with substandard material, it is better for you to pull out of that site. If you don't pull out of the site, you become culpable. Yes, if you decide to say, if I pull out, somebody else will come. Holistically, all of us are supposed to key into that so that nobody comes. If everybody starts telling the client that, no, we cannot use this. No, this is not the standard. No, this cannot do this job. Then the client has nowhere to go. If you go to the timber shed now and ask for 2x2, if you want to have a wood that is 2x2, you have to go to the bush yourself and stand there for it to be cut to that size. If not, there is nowhere in any public sales where they are selling wood that you get a standard gauge of 2x2 or any of the sizes of the wood. You can't get it. But Son is in this town, and the marketers are there marketing that material. We have nowhere to go, so we have no choice than to buy what is available to us, except for that person who chooses to go into the bush and make sure he gets the certification at the cost that is supposed to be. So the government agency saddled with that tax is Son. Then we, the professionals, at the different levels that we are, we have associations. Maybe it is time for us to start preaching this to our professional colleagues so that you don't go to any site and accept any substandard material. Maybe with that, we'll be able to achieve something.
Okay, as a matter of policy for us at Gate Radio, we are certainly going to get across to Son, that's the Standard Organization of Nigeria, particularly the Benue office, to get to hear from them what measures they may be putting in place to forestall any such incident in Benue. And later on, you professionals who are here will also speak to us within the context of what your professional associations are doing to that effect. But again, I am with you now, Architect Ahangba. Just before we open the telephone lines for people to call in, with the recurring issues of building collapse we are facing now, does this call for integrity tests for existing buildings, especially story buildings, so we are sure of the state they are to guarantee the safety of people?
In Sena climes, you don't even have to wait for buildings to collapse before you carry out integrity tests. I earlier mentioned that buildings have lifespans. You don't wait for your car to crash before you take it for repairs, do you? There is a time that you drive your vehicle and you feel it has become necessary for you to check if this vehicle can still carry you for the next number of days. For buildings that have stayed up to 15, 20 years, I will advise every reasonable client to carry out integrity tests on them. Buildings have a lifespan. When you finish constructing your building, it is not expected to stay there forever. Please check it. Wear and tear happens in buildings after time. There are reactions. When you finish your building, there are reactions of the environment on them. So it is only reasonable for you that after time, you could carry out integrity tests and fix whatever needs to be fixed.
Do you share a dissenting opinion, Engineer Manger?
Of course. Of course, you don't need to wait for something to happen before you carry out an integrity test. But another thing, if you come to Benue, how many people have the equipment to carry out this test? That's another setback. But it's not a setback because people are ready to do it and there's nobody there to do it. For now, it's only Uniagric, the Jostum University, that can have somebody that carries out those tests, and the cost is high. But that doesn't stop us from doing it. Let's start with government checking their own structures. By the time government check their own structures, prevention starts from that end. Other persons will key in. An integrity test is a holistic thing. You start, most of the buildings that were constructed, was the soil analysis done? Was the bearing capacity checked? We visited the site somewhere in Ahangba quarters that is already on the third floor, and we requested for the drawing plans. When they brought it to us, we checked, and what was happening there was not in confirmation with what is on ground, on the design. And we requested to see the site engineer. There was none. The person who was acting in that place decided when the client called him, he warned him not to call him. He was not the person who did the design. We requested for an integrity test. We proffered, we suggested an engineer for the site for him to employ. The engineer gave him the cost to carry out the integrity test, and he said it was too much. Until now, he has not been able to do it. But secretly, he goes back to continue with the work. So if they are private clients, most of them will dodge it, but they are dodging it at their own risk. So if we start with government, maybe we will save what would have happened in the future. Then the private people too can key in.
Okay, let's engage with the listener. The line to call in on the program is 0814-335-9292. 0814-335-9292. Once you connect with us, we would like to know your name and where you are calling in from. Then you go ahead and make your submission. Please keep it very brief. You can also send us a text or a chat on WhatsApp to 0912-699-9404. 0912-699-9404. Log on to our website on www.agateradio.tv.com to also listen to the program and all other Agate Radio content. If you follow our social media pages, the program is also streaming there live. Hello, good morning.
Yes, hello, good morning.
Welcome to Perspectives.
Yes, Ibu calling from West Quarters.
Okay, good to have you join us.
Yes, I have just a little input. Yeah, I think one of the reasons why we can't hear you very well.
Bedo, you are on. We can hear you loud and clear.
Yes, one of the reasons why we have building collapses and some structural malfunction is most times we have this mentality that I know who can do cheaper. Now, if a client A thinks he's going to do this for so amount of money, they'll not start giving him advice on somebody that can do it cheaper. And sometimes because he's trying to cut corners and look for who will do cheaper, that is where problem will come. Just like there's an example in my own field now, there is a drug we call ceftriaxone. Ordinary ceftriaxone, they sell it for like 1,000 naira. But for Rosofin, that very brand, you buy it for 3,000. Am I making any sense?
Yes.
So because we want to cut corners, I'll just go and buy ceftriaxone of 400, wanting it to do the work of Rosofin of 3,000 plus. So I think it's high time the professionals should stick to their oath and maintain their integrity. An appropriate sanction should be given to whoever is found wanting. The next one is a question. If an architect gives a plan of a house and he says this and this material should be done, and if an engineer now says, oh, I'll use this in place of that, now which advice is the client supposed to follow? Maybe my professional colleague will give me more insight on this.
All right. Thank you, Tenenge.
Yeah.
I appreciate you for calling in. We'll also respond to your concern as we go along. You have related it to, maybe we should start with that architect Ahangba, respond to that pointedly before we take more calls, just briefly.
Yes, these professionals, they know their job descriptions. If the specification of materials are relating to the safety of a structure, that is the responsibility of an engineer. But if they are relating to the function and the aesthetic value of the building, it is the job of the architect. For a good design, it should come with those specifications, and the respective professionals would have sent in their specifications. So there is no time when a dispute relating to the specification of materials should arise.
All right. Engineer Manger, I will also allow you to weigh in.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
I greet you all in the studio.
Yes, we'll greet you too.
Yes, my name is Kwagba TV from Kanshu.
Kwagba who?
TV.
Okay. Go ahead, Kwagba
Yes.
TV.
My contribution goes this way. You know, as my brother who called last said, we know somebody who can do or go big for cheaper price, so to say. We also know that some others had the tremble. So that when the building collapse, that is the effect of going for those who can do that for cheaper prices. And again, my contribution. So some of us, we know very well that some areas are on waterways, but still we go and then build houses on waterways. What do we expect? At the end result is the collapse. I think for my summation, that is what I want to give. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. We appreciate you, Kwagba TV. Part of development control measures, talking about building on waterways. Engineer Mange, you also weigh in on the earlier poser by Tenenge. The conflict of interest, exactly as we were trying to resolve earlier.
Our conflict of interest are not to do with materials. Most of the times we don't have conflicts as to do with materials. Aesthetics are purely the job of an architect. And you can't go with, what has structural design got to do with aesthetics?
And function.
And functions. If, like I said before, the hall we are sitting in now, you gave the architect your specification and he provided for this size, it is up to me to come up with a structural design that will make this stand. I'm not supposed to come and tell him to reduce the space. If I'm coming to tell him to reduce the space, that is where conflict will come. I'm supposed to provide the structural members that will make this stand. We normally don't have conflict in those areas. It is quite stupid for anybody to come on site and tell the architect to change this and this or don't use this material. No.
So no client should adhere to one-sided direction from any, be it an architect or
In fact, no client will come and be asking you about what materials he should use. Yes, you might have an idea.
Okay.
You can see the fancifulness of this.
Yeah. Hello. Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Yes. I'm
You are who?
confident from high level.
Confidence who?
Okafor.
All right, go ahead, Confidence Okafor.
Okay. Engineer Manger, good morning, sir.
Thank you very much.
Architect, good morning, sir.
Yes, good morning.
I greet you all.
Good morning.
You see, I want to say something here because I'm calling from the site. I'm into interior deco. I work in the site and I see what is happening every day. Sometimes some of those engineers and architects are eating breast stews and so they birthright to the crime.
The engineers and architects are doing what?
Selling the birthright, eating breast stew.
Okay.
Say the birthright.
Okay.
Yes, that's some. I don't mean generally. I say some.
Yes.
And especially those who are doing that seems to be having more jobs more than those who are qualified. I know what I'm saying. I'm already with them. I want to say something. There's a building going up in this Makurdi, and I don't want to mention the name of the place.
No, we don't encourage that either.
Yes, this man don't want. It's a hotel. He don't want a pillar in the hall. Already the pillar have already done, and about 2 in 1 by 6. The man said no. He don't want pillar. That text said no. If he must do it, he has to reinforce the iron and make it 2 meters gap by 6. The man said no, he don't want anything pillar. The architect said no, he cannot work with you, sir. And the man leave. So behold, somebody else came and started the job. By the time they remove those baboons, after setting, I'm telling you, things start having hunchback. They have to call the architect back. He said, sir, this thing have to come down. That's the man with standard. That I cannot work with this unless the whole thing have to come down. They start fresh. Imagine the cost. And he maintains the standard, he leaves, and the man have to call him and I assure you that those things come down.
Hello, Confidence?
Yes.
Yes, please conclude. The network is getting unfriendly.
Okay.
You're on
Then
site.
I want Manger to I want to contribute this, sir. If this would do, sir, I want the state government to have a standard. In a place there's a place that you cannot have a story building. There's some places you cannot have more than downstairs. There's some area that you cannot have more than 2-story buildings, sir. If that's done, sir, because somebody will you borrow a plan from a friend, maybe you put up 2-story building, you don't even know whether it's a waterlogged area or something of that nature. You want to put up the same 2-story building in that place, sir. That's the problem. So I want the government to look at it. They map out some area that this place cannot go more than a storage building or downstairs building.
All right.
I think by so doing, we have to reduce some cost of this building collapse. Thank you, and God bless.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Confidence. We appreciate you for sharing that experience with us. Confidence says he is calling from the site, so we believe that what he's saying, he know it very well. But Engineer Manger, I'll allow you to conclude your thoughts, because here is what, based on what Confidence is telling us, here is a client detecting to the professional what should be done, what he wants in such a situation. What should be the best direction
Good.
to approach this?
The client is supposed to give you briefs. When you take his briefs, you advise him. Just like the engineer advised him, you cannot have this without a column. If you need this without a column, yes, the architect can now call on a structural engineer to see if there is possible. If the structural engineer can make a structural design at the end of the day for the roofing without a column for that area. Why? The architect, he is talking about an architect. Strength of the structure and so on has nothing to do with the architect. So location of a pillar, like he's saying, in whatever area he's talking, was about space.
Yes.
Isn't it?
Yes.
Space management is with the architect and aesthetics. So it has nothing to do with strength. For whatever reason, the architect decided he didn't want the pillar there. It is only the architect that can say.
No,
but the way where he went into say hunchback started coming, what it means strength has to come. Abi? So they needed a structural engineer to tell them if it was possible not to put a pillar there or not. But if the architect was sure of what he wanted and thought he was giving him the best, it was only reasonable for the client to hear him out.
No, sir, I think you misunderstood.
I'll come to you, Architect Ahangba, very briefly. Just one more call will come up. Good morning.
Hello.
Hello. Please turn down the volume of your radio set or move away from it so we can speak better.
Okay, this is Ifanyogu.
Ifanyogu, where are you calling us from?
From North Bank here, man. Or you call me area father. Everybody know me here.
Ifanyogu, thank you for joining us from North Bank. Go ahead. We're interested in your read.
Okay, let me just say something. See, I work with many construction companies. And I work with, even though the one they call Wangara engineers. You know, some of all this that is happening is from the owners of the builders. The person who want to build a house. They would, if you tell them that this is what you will do, the iron or the message of a cement that you use in doing this thing, they will tell you this is my house. It's what I tell you that you will do. If it is iron 16 or iron 18 or 20, they would say use iron 10 or iron 8. I think you understand. And you cannot otherwise. You have to follow their instruction. That's what is happening. Consider this building collapse. That's what I want to contribute to you people.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate you, Ifanyogu.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay, Engineer Ahangba.
Yes.
You were about to weigh in on the concern raised by confidence or CAFO, especially the experience of a client detecting to an architect, as he mentioned, what he wants on his development.
Okay. No, I was going to say that Engineer Ukeyima did not understand. He misconstrued the position of the caller. The caller said it was the architect insisting that there must be a column.
Oh.
It was the client saying, I do not want this column. So, but I think to solve that situation, like in Abuja, development control, you cannot cast anything until the engineers come to supervise. So, if our development control agency here steps up and visits sites regularly to enforce these things, they would have come across it. I would have expected also that the architect who pulled out should have gone ahead to call the attention of the relevant bodies, maybe the Council for Regulation of Engineering Practice or the architects, Nigerian Institute of Architects, to come and see what is happening. To come and somebody will have to answer. That's the contribution I wanted to make.
All right. Okay. Hello. Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Welcome to Perspectives.
Thank you, sir. This is Honorable Samuel. It's calling from Taka local government.
Okay, Samuel Chovenda, which part of Taka are you reaching us from?
I'm from Bachau.
Okay, Bachau.
Yes, I wish to at least acknowledge the presence of my elder brother, Honorable Engineer Manger Ukeyima.
Yeah.
And my contribution is this. You know, there are issues which the clients, they do use to at least enforce on the builders, those engineers. Most of the times, for instance, if at all you give or the engineer estimate materials which have been going to use by building this, making this building. Most of the times, if at all you told them that you are going to use this Y12 or Y10 in this particular place, they will be telling you that the cost of this Y10 or Y12 is too high. And again, the other effect on these builders, if at all the engineers, the clients bought all those cements were constructed. So at least if at all, I wish to advise that if at all these builders, they have to at least keep those funds in such a way that they will make use of that building and the building will be solid and the work will be good.
Okay.
That is the least contribution I have to make.
Thank you, Samuel. We appreciate you for calling in.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
Thank you.
We appreciate you. Okay, Engineer Manger, your co-discussant mentioned something which I would like us to expand on. Oftentimes, cases of building collapse as we have seen in public domain, nobody has been prosecuted, or we have been told that the professionals who were involved, their level of culpability and sanctions meted out on them. Your colleague just advocated pulling out of a project that a client wants something different and also making a formal report. Have there been any such instances with your own professional association? To what extent are you doing?
Yes, very much. The Nigerian Society of Engineers, in conjunction with COREN, are always on the site everywhere in town here. And for whatever site we go, we come up with a report which the two bodies keep a copy each. We forward to our national headquarters and we give the client a copy of our report, so that tomorrow, in event of anything, you will know our position.
But let me interrupt you briefly. I'll come back to you. Hello, good morning.
Hello.
Good morning.
Good morning, please.
Thank you for joining us on Perspectives.
Thank you very much. My name is Oga Aban from Kanshu side.
All right, Oga Aban, go ahead.
Yeah. I thank your guests. Usually in Nigeria, we have more frequency of building collapse. However, all over the world, building collapse. No matter what we do, building one day collapse. The reason is that soil is very variable, and when unfavorable conditions come is right on the below the foundation, the building will tilt, and when there is a partial settlement, no matter what happens, it will come down with heavy cracks and collapse. But in Nigeria, the frequency is much because we do a lot of sharp practices, as alluded to by your guest. They have dealt with it. However, I want to say the most contributing factor there is the sharp practices by these so-called engineers and the owners of the buildings, the developers. Now, concrete have to form a good bond with iron steel. The size is that talking of is the diameter of the iron rod, whether it's 10, whether it's 12 or 15 or 20 or 25. So the higher the strength, that is from the analysis of the structure, the higher the load, the higher is the diameter they will use for that structure, depending on the level and the element that is they want to design. So, but in most cases, some of these our Nigerian factor will come in. Some of the engineers will collect money and then do the other thing that is not supposed to be done.
Okay, so
and again,
yeah, so let's find a solution to that. Just advance the solution and conclude.
Now the solution is this: we have to the government have to be very strict about punishing the offenders, the developers and the engineer who supervise a structure. If that is done, then the rate of building collapse may minimize, because there is no money, and even when they have money, they want to maximize it, and to the detriment of the lives. Look at this, the just calamity now. It pains me when innocent school children are dying, and
right.
Because of.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you,
Right.
We appreciate you. Thanks so much. You have made your point. Engineer Manger.
Yes.
I'm so sorry. Continue your thoughts. You were
we
speaking
visit
to
sites and
yes.
develop these reports, like the Dunamis Church in North Bank. You know, government put together a committee, and yes, NSC is on the committee, but they are not heading it. It's up to government to do that one. But outside that, that church has also started another structure, and we have visited it too, and we have done what is expected for us to do. But the problem is this: we talk about development control. If you go to the urban development, Makurdi, I think for now there is no engineer there.
No engineer in their employment?
No. I think the one that was there was retired.
You are only alleging, or is something for a fact you are
Well, I know
of?
the one that was there has retired. So you send drawings. They are supposed to be the ones checking those drawings and approving. Isn't it? And we are supposed to, it is their approval that we go to site to check. So from the government itself, like he's saying, development control should go to site and check. Yes, they go to site. We have issues like in Nongu when we went, there was no drawing. And the man on site was trying to tell us that the drawing is with the development control. We asked, is it the development control that give you verbal advice to commence work? If they have the drawing, you are not supposed to start work until you have the drawing. So you have started work, is it with their verbal directive? So you see where the problem is coming from. But for us, NSC, we are in collaboration with Koren and we have been visiting sites. We face different challenges. There's a problem there. There's supposed to be an ERM team in the state, which is supposed to be.
And by ERM here, you mean what in specific?
Engineering, Regulatory and Monitoring Committee.
Okay.
So it's supposed to be constituted and inaugurated by the governor, which is supposed to comprise all those professionals, including Koren, with the law enforcement agencies inside. Other states have put this thing in place. Benue have not. Why do we need law enforcement? Some of those sites you go, you have problem there. If you don't take time, you might even be beaten. So it's not just about development control. Development control, if you go around, you see them putting asterisks on some buildings. Even those ones, after putting it, people still go ahead. But for us, NSC, for now, we have been trying to visit the sites we can visit, develop reports, send to our headquarters. We send a copy to our headquarters. Koren sends a copy to their headquarters too. And then we leave a copy with the client, so that tomorrow you will not say you don't know what we came to your site to do. So we have been trying to do the little we can do. But we need the support of government to put that committee into place. If they put that committee into place and give it the backing, with that committee, development agencies are also members of it. You have all the paramilitaries, customs, immigrations, police. Why do we bring custom and immigration? Because there are foreigners. There are some companies here that are carrying out constructions that are foreigners. Do they even have the right papers to be here? So if that committee is in place with architects, builders, and everybody inside,
okay,
they're out there doing the job.
All right, we hope the authorities are listening and should act, but have you advised through the appropriate quarters on what should be done?
We have written severally to the governor, to the commissioner of works, the director of civil. We have put letters there. But maybe the governor has been too tight and has not responded to us.
Okay, Architect Ahangba, from your own institute, what measures is your professional body at the level of the state putting in place to forestall incidents of building collapse, particularly in Benue? But let me take this call. If you, several have been waiting on the line, let's take some.
Yeah, good morning.
Morning to you.
Yeah.
Hello. Hello.
To meet with the development control agencies so that we can collaborate with them and make sure that we visit sites and we ensure that drawings are made, specifications are done, and they are followed to the latter in the course of the construction of those buildings.
All right, let's take some messages before we come back. And this one here says, is the Teso Veyo from welfare quarters in Makurdi. Mine is a question: why must the son, first of all, allow the substandard materials to be sold in the market. Okay. Thank you, Teso. We don't not have Son on the program, but we will allow the engineers to comment on it briefly. Let me take some few more calls before we come back to the messages. Hello, good morning. Morning to you.
Thank you. Sorry.
Yes, welcome to the program.
I called by the network, Madam Fiasu.
Okay, now you are. What is your name?
My name is Fiasu Mutun.
All right, Fiasu Mutun. Good to have you. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. I appreciate your guest much for the awareness they have given. And it is clear now that professionals also are really not a line of this. So those who would have equally come to the aid of averting this building collapse is the area boys who collect money when a contract is given, because they are always there to force them money. The professionals are not there. So for me, I am saying that all the area boys should be vigilant, and then in their own way of trying to put an eye to these things, you can have less of this building collapse. That's my thinking.
Okay, Fiasu, but area boys are not professionals. They are
not professional.
So how do they get to be vigilant or to know the faulty building that is being done?
Before you comment before you start erecting your building, they are there with you from the beginning to the end of it. The professionals come there, they do their own, just like the other man who give an eyewitness who is falling down in the site and have given an eyewitness report. How do you talk about such a case? But those who are mixing and those area boys who are also in that particular environment, they are there. And they can equally reach the location by saying, no, we don't want this. We don't want this. But the professionals just come and say, I know what I'm saying.
Okay, thank you. We appreciate you.
I know what I'm saying. So please, let the area boys try the location and help us out, because the professionals have equally failed.
Thank you. For us on the program, that is not our line of thought, even though we accept your opinion, but generally we are looking at how the issue can be got. Thank you for calling in, Fiase. We are not leaving room. We are just, that is why we got those in the build industry to advance solutions. So that is not part of even though we accept the diversity of your opinion, but they should be noted. Some messages more before we come back. Good day, the presenter, the guests in the studio. I am of the opinion that our building professionals should display their expertise to the public infrastructure, and their professional associations should also show the public which ones are confirmed companies. Otherwise, some stakeholders can speak well, but what they have done in building and construction would be rubbish. Nyajo Godwin from Bajimba in Guma local government. Okay, Nyajo, thank you. Appreciate you. Good morning, Nathaniel and your guests in the studio. To me, sharp practices are mainly the cause of building collapse in Nigeria. Also, poor maintenance culture, design error, poor quality of materials and workmanship, including natural phenomena and excessive loading. If all these factors are checked, it will reduce building collapse in Nigeria. Vincent Akwa from Wadata. Okay, Vincent, thank you. Damba Okam from High Level Makurdi. I greet the guest, Prof. Zanzan Uji of Architecture at the University of Jos, wrote this book, Building Collapse in Nigeria and the Collapse of National Values. God bless. Okay, Adam Walker, thank you. Maybe we are recommending a book. Controlling building collapse in our country is an infrastructure reinforcement of the expertise or engineers when they seek to lay the foundation of the structure on our buildings that stand the test of time in a given area. Isaac Utsua in Iye Goma local government. Okay, Isaac, thank you. Your message is not too clear, but thank you all the same for your contribution for sending in. Okay, the line is still open, and before we engage with more callers, Engineer Manger, speak to us within the context of how holistic the issue of building collapse could be tackled, looking at the human factors you pointed at and natural factors that can also be mitigated.
Thank you very much. Let me start from natural factors. When we talk about natural factors, we look at issues of earthquakes and seismic reactions in the soils and so on. So in this part of our climate, we don't have high problem of earthquakes or something, but we have issues of flooding and like somebody saying, locating structures on waterways and so on. If you deliberately go and do that, obviously you come and face that problem when the time comes. But the natural factors, as we look at them here, have not terribly affected us yet. The human factors for now is what is our problem. And from the client aspect, we can only advise them to please use the professionals. From our own side, like the professional bodies are all available. The building society, the urban planners, the architects, the engineers. Even within the engineers, again, there are subdivisions or specialities.
Yes.
And like in the NSC, to contribute our bit, the NSC Makurdi has a committee, which is PFAC, Prevention, Investigation, and Failure Analysis Committee. We do not wait for Koren. Even if Koren is not available, we move to make sure we check what we are supposed to check in any building we notice that is ongoing. And this committee, when it comes back, write advice. We are not going to side to Winchont. We are going to correct and advise to prevent what might come up tomorrow. If every association, professional association, put together this kind of committee and they are working, they can even come together and see how they can improve on how to checkmate these things. Then we'll go back to the development agencies. The development agency is saddled with the task to see that everything goes right. Just like one of the callers said, structures are not supposed, urban planners must have planned the town. And when you are giving an allocation of land, they say either low density or high density, and for all those areas, there are designated structures that are supposed to be developed in those areas so that the town will come up nice and well planned. But at the end of the day, when we give allocations to people, development control does not check whether anything is done. Somebody who is allocated a residential plot goes to build a filling station right in the middle of residential houses, and nothing happens. Tomorrow there is a tank that fills there and oil spills and there is fire. Who is held responsible? Destruction has come already. So development control has a very big role to play. Like I was observing, right from the development control, all the professionals are supposed to be there. So that from that point, the drawings that have been submitted will be well checked before they even go out for implementation. But even in the development control, we have architects, we have professionals presented an environmental impact analysis report. And yes, it was a report produced, but it was put together and had no use. It was lifted up and the whole other area was going to be eroded if they complete the structure. But all these documents were passed to urban development, and they still allow the structure to start. So after the professionals, they must step up. If somebody is wanting, then the man in charge should place the big stick so that the person can be on his toes to do his job. Like the architect Ahangba has put in place. He has referred us to Abuja, where You cannot cast unless the engineer is there. We have people casting slabs, deckings in this town with no engineer on the site. If you go there, they tell you my engineer traveled or whatever. So please, the job is in the hands of the professionals. We should be proud of what we have chosen to do. We went to school, spent 5 years, spent 7 years to come out with this. So we should be proud to display what we have gone to study. That's my thinking.
All right, Architect Ahangba. The overall objective is for us to find solution to stop unnecessary loss of lives and injuries people get to experience whenever there's a building collapse. Let's evolve a solution to this once and for all. From your end as an architect, what are the immediate things that can be done to curtail the rise of building collapse?
For me, it starts with the client. He's the one who is investing in a building. He should take his investment seriously. As we talk about the incompetencies and the malpractices of some professionals, it does not mean that capable professionals with high level of integrity and love for their jobs are in short supply. Across all the professions, you can find people of integrity who have a mastery of their art and who are willing to give the best of the profession. So for a client wanting to undertake a development, I will advise that always seek the services of a qualified and competent professional. If that is done, the second stage is to go into the development itself, from the design stage to the construction stage. Please minimize your input after you have given a brief, because sometimes you find that every day some clients evolve thoughts. They go to the site and say, I intended for this to be this, but somebody has advised me to, so I want to add this to this. When you have given your comprehensive brief, follow it. If you have a change of mind, please let your professional advise you. Then, to the professional agencies, to the regulatory agencies, they should collaborate. They should come together and find a harmony, an organization where the architect is there, the engineer is there, and they build this team to go out and ensure that all the requirements to put together a structure are there. Government should also give support to the development control agencies by way of providing security and funding for them to be able to enforce the laws, because the laws are in place. The laws are not absent. The enforcement is the problem. The Standard Organization of Nigeria on their own too, they have a part to play. They should check who is supplying what quality of materials. The proliferation of blocks all over the place should stop. There should be standards. This is the number of blocks that you will produce from one bag of cement. Let somebody check these qualities. This way, if we put all these measures in place, we will be able to forestall the syndrome of building collapse in Nigeria.
Okay, Engineer Manger, we are gradually getting to a point that will draw our curtains. But also a common phenomenon. People sometimes, a building that was conceived not as a story building may later be converted. Is there some word of caution you would give to developers who may wish to undertake such an endeavor, especially for residential purpose?
Yes, thank you very much. It is a very common phenomenon, and it is still easy. If we just take the advice of the architect, whatever change you choose to do, just seek the advice of your professional. Call the architect to give you, when you give him your brief, he will come up with the change you want. The structural engineer will give you the structural design for what you want to do, to move it from that bungalow to a high-rise building. Don't just sit down and change and bring builders on the side, message to start building something. Before you move to that, you ensure that the soil analysis of that land is checked, so that the land's bearing capacity will be enough to carry the structure you are talking about. If you don't do that, then you are leading yourself into problem. That goes to say too that there are a lot of government buildings that are start and abandoned. When government chooses to go back, including private individuals, if you have abandoned your structure for some time and you now want to go back and start, it is only reasonable for you to carry out an integrity test to see the level for which that building has deteriorated and what is supposed to be done to bring it back to what is supposed to be. If you don't do that, you think that we have this negative concept that cement gets stronger with water. That is curing. That is not it. Weather has affected what you abandoned. So when you come after a long time, carry out an integrity test on the structure. Then you know what you need to do to bring it back to the required state that will best serve you. If you don't do and come and take the advice of your mason, don't worry, when we plaster it with a very good cement, then it will work. Cement that is too rich also leads to cracks. There's limit to a mix. If you go and overload your mortar with cement thinking you are getting strength, you're only getting cracks. It's not the issue. It's not what that is the layman's outlook to that thing. So please, we have a lot of abandoned buildings. When we come and start, we just take off without doing any integrity test on them. So if you have a structure, you started as a bungalow, you now have the resources, you think you should convert it to a high-rise building. Call your architect, call the engineer. Carry out a soil test to determine the bearing capacity. Then the engineer will give you a structural design that is commensurate with what the architect has given to you, that will stand the test of time.
All right. Architect Ahangba, is there something you wish to add to that?
No, he has said exactly what it should be. I will only again reemphasize that for the client intending to carry out a building project, he should always seek the services of a competent professional.
All right. In the next 3 minutes, we should be concluding. And Engineer Manger, in terms of sanctions you made out, let's start with members who within are practicing quackery. Do you have an internal mechanism to discipline them? Or even how can people identify who is a real professional and who is not?
Yes, within the NSC, a registered NSC member has a registration number. And when you check that number on the NSC portal, you get his details. The same thing goes with Koren. When we arrive at site, we ask for the drawing. Every registered engineer has a seal. So for whatever drawing that is designed by an engineer, he seals it and his number is there. So we don't need to ask anybody any question. The moment we go to the site and ask for the drawing and look at your seal, we know your number. And then we slot it to the portal and we know who the engineer is. It's very straightforward. And when we check who the engineer is, we'll check whether he's up to date in his licensing. That is where we start when we get to any site. So if you want to check who is a registered engineer, it's very easy. You just log on to Current Portal and then ask the person for his number. Even the name. If he's licensed, if you just log in his name, it will come out with his number. So when we go to a site, just like the Director General of NEBRI, anywhere they find an engineer culpable, his license is withdrawn and is handed over to the police. for prosecution. That is why it is wrong for you to seal a drawing that is not designed by you. We have cases where some friends have brought drawings to you for somebody to seal, and eventually such a building collapsed and the person was held responsible. He's languishing in the prison. He didn't do the design. He only sealed it because his friend wanted a favor from him. So we apply function if you are found guilty. And we can define who is a registered engineer just by going to the portal, both NSE and Koren.
All right, Architect Ahangba.
Yes.
Internally within your own professional association,
Yes.
what is the level of sanctions meted out on area members, especially with regards to cases of building collapse?
The Nigerian Institute of Architects and the Architects Registration Council of Nigeria have also put in place similar measures just like Koren and the NSC have put in. There's a website where all the registered architects have their information on. So if you go to a site and you find a represented architect, all you need to do is to get their number. You go to the website, you will see. In the event where the architect is found culpable, it's withdrawal of the license, just like the NSC and Koren does.
All right, Engineer Manger, I will allow you to give your parting words in 1 minute.
Thank you very much, Nathaniel. I am quite happy to be on this program. I want to seize this opportunity to call on engineers to be proud of their profession and to maintain their integrity. They should not compromise what they have suffered to study. The essence of engineering is to build, not to destroy. Engineering is one profession where whatever you do comes to the open. Everybody sees it. And if it achieves the desired intention, you are very happy and proud. I want to also use this opportunity to appeal and beg clients. Why do you want to be penny wise and pound foolish? You go to waste your money on a site. You carry people, some people will say, this man, I know him, was the one who built for my father all these years. At the end of the day, you put in this money and your building collapses. The money you would have used in putting the professionals which you are running away from, you have now lost it. Finally, I am calling on government to please encourage the development control agencies and inaugurate the ARN team for Benue State so that professionals can be protected to go on site anytime to checkmate what is being done in the construction industry in Benue State. Thank you very much.
All right, Architect Ahangba, your parting words, your concluding words in 1 minute, please.
It has been a refreshing time having this discussion. I am particularly happy because it's a way of advancing the development of our profession, our dear profession. I would like the clients to understand that different sites have peculiar characteristics. We should please stop adopting building typologies for our sites. Even if you have seen a drawing somewhere, a beautiful picture online, or you have seen a drawing type somewhere that you so cherish, please don't just lift it. The peculiarities that brought that type of design may not be similar with your site. Always seek the advice of a professional. I also appeal to my professional colleagues and those at the urban development control agencies to please stop doing jobs that are not theirs. If you are not a professional engineer, please do not do an engineering drawing. If you are not an architect, please do not do an architectural drawing. Everybody should stay within the limits of their profession. And then the government should also encourage and empower the development control agencies to carry out their jobs to the letter.
Okay, and that would be a fine place for us to leave it on the program. I appreciate very sincerely our panelists, the chairman, Nigerian Society of Engineers, Makurdi Branch, Engineer Ukeyima Manger. Thank you very much for coming
you,
with
Nathaniel.
perspectives. Private practicing architect, member, Nigerian Institute of Architects, Architect John Ahangba. Thank you so much indeed for your time with us.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
Dear listener, we appreciate your listenership. We are here because of you. Thank you very much for your understanding and your contribution through phone calls. We couldn't take all the calls because we needed to allow the conversation to flow. We hope you'll bear with us and join us on Friday for another edition of Perspectives. We conclude by saying the lives of over 22 souls. I don't know, of course, grant the grieving family solace and the departed people eternal rest. And back here in Benue, we hope that we'll be on the watch out. Our sensitization on this program should help you to forestall the incidents of building collapse. God bless you. I'll see you on Friday. Goodbye. I am Nathaniel Nongu.